Well, good evening, everybody. It is going to be a very special program we're going to do tonight. We're going to be hearing from a very special person, a person that I've gotten a chance to meet, and he is a great representative. I think for the Huntsville area up there. I've forgotten what his district is, but he's going to be talking to you. This is his first term. I think it is Sister Rolanda Hollis's first term too. Maybe it's like maybe the full term that she's got. But this brother you're going to be hearing from tonight is a guy that's going to bring you information about what's going on in our state, especially from the purview of the Democratic Party. And we're going to hear things and policies that they're going to be promoting to make this state better and what they feel how they can do things better than, I guess, some of their Republican counterparts. But what we're going to be doing is hearing from him. And I've got also a special guest, Representative Rolanda Hollis. And we're going to bring her on too, because you've heard from her a few weeks ago. And she'll share with you with some of the initiatives that she's working with. And with Representative Hollis, she's running unopposed. So she has a natural just shoe in for her district. She's going to be able to make it. And you got good time to ask questions of everyone that's involved. And then we've got, as you all remember, a part of the Gatekeepers Association, Pastor Randy Williams, that's Parkway Christian Fellowship, and then Father Mitch Pacquiao of Ewtn, Eternal Word Network. And then hopefully I'm looking for getting Pastor Mike McClure to be on with us also. Now, there are things that we will be discussing once I bring Representative Daniels on, and I don't want you to miss anything that he's got to say because this brother has a lot of things that he can share with you to help you know what's going on. First time I heard him speak, and he just went through things. Now I'm playing him up right now, so we're sure he's going to be able to be real good because I'm talking about him right now. But when he comes on, he's going to share with you things that are going on from the House Minority Leader. And what that means, he is the main go-to person when people want to know what's going on as far as the Democratic Party. And you know we have, I'm not sure how many Democrats we have that are in the House, but he'll share that with you. And we know that we have, as far as the U.S. Congress, we've got one Democrat representative, but he is going to talk tonight. He'll share with us that on last Monday, a week ago, a federal court made an order that said that Alabama is going to have to draw its redistricting lines so that there will be the possibility of another person perhaps in the position like Terry Sewell is. And we shall see as we will hear from him on that. Now, I want you to go out and tell everybody, I'm watching the numbers go up now, go tell everybody, just like I give you the word of God. And that's important. Jesus came that we might have life and have it more abundantly. What we've got to do is we have got to make sure we have the righteous in charge. If we do not have righteous leaders, what's the scripture tell us? You all know what that is. The people will mourn. The people will groan because we will not have good government. We are responsible for having good government. And as the word of God is said, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. I guess I said that right. Well, here it is. When the wicked in authority, and we can put them in authority, the people are going to mourn. But when the righteous are in authority, the people will rejoice. Well, I'm going to tell you, the two representatives we have right now, I believe in them, and I think they're great representatives on behalf of the people. And I just want you to know them, and I want you to hear from them. And I want you to tell everybody, go out there now, tell folk that Bishop's got some state representatives on. They're going to tell you about what's going on in the Alabama State Legislature. They're meeting in session now. I believe it is probably, this might be going on their third week. They're getting ready to get bills, or it could be their second week. We'll find out. But they're going to do bills and things that hopefully are going to be for the good of the people. But you're going to hear about it tonight. And know that sometimes I'm challenged by the grocery tax that people have to pay tax on groceries. I'm challenged by the gasoline tax to put 10-cent tax on us now. And with everything going up, I don't know what they're going to do about it, but they pushed that thing through last year. And as soon as they got in there, I don't agree with it, but I'll tell you that. And I can speak my piece on that because I don't like paying 10 cents extra. But the two people you want to talk to are going to be on here tonight. But first of all, I want to bring Representative Daniels in and get him in with us and get him to make an introduction. So, Representative Daniels, as all of you all are going to tell folk, get them out there. You know how Bishop wants you to know what's going on. Tell them Bishop's got 2 representatives on and got 3 pastors on board right now. So we can talk rhetoric versus reality. So, Representative Anthony Daniels, great to have you on board our program tonight with the gatekeepers are putting on. And I'm going to turn the mic over to you and let you share, and then we'll bring in the pastors later on and Representative Hollis for discussion. So you got the floor without me intervening, unless you want me to intervene, but you got it, Representative.
Well, thank you, Bishop, and certainly an honor to be here. And certainly thank you for the invitation, and thank my good friend and colleague, Representative Rolanda Hollis, for the work that she's doing, and all of those good members in the Birmingham, Jefferson County area for the work that they're doing to represent the interests of all the people in Jefferson County. And so we certainly appreciate them. I'll start by going through just a little bit about my background. My background is education. I started off as a third grade teacher at a public magnet school in Huntsville, Alabama. Uh, Taught fourth grade at a Title I school in Huntsville, Alabama. And then I taught on an Indian reservation between Albuquerque and Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so my background is education. So quite naturally, a lot of my focus in the legislature is on education, but also economics. And I'll start with education to kind of talk about where we are, where we're going, and some of the things that will be introduced during this particular legislative session so that you understand exactly where we are, where we're going, and also give you an opportunity to intervene and voice your opinions about where we're going in education and other areas that I'm going to mention today. Tonight. And so, on the education side, I'm very fortunate that Governor Ivey has every year that she's been governor has increased funding for pre-K. I understand as a former educator that, and statistics tell us that every dollar that's invested in early childhood education saves you $7 in corrections. I'll repeat, every dollar that's invested in early childhood education saves you $7 in corrections. And so we understand that the brain development for a child is birth to the age of 5 is about 90% of the brain development. And if we know as educating children on the front end sets the foundation for them long term, then why aren't we doing more? I'm a big proponent, not just pre-K, but also cradle to pre-K. I remember the time with my grandmother, I was raised by my grandparents, and would see families sending their child to grandma's house for the first 3 to 4 years. But when that child starts school, they're behind because they didn't have exposure to curriculum early on. If you want to, the greatest investment that you can make is making certain that you're educating your child from birth to pre-K at the highest level possible, because that's going to set the foundation for them. And it's going to set the foundation for their life and their livelihood and their children. And so I think it's extremely important that we understand those statistics. Now, the other thing about education, this last year, we passed a piece of legislation to pay math and science teachers more salaries that are competitive to engineering firms or working in the defense industry. Because in Alabama, we're making a conscious effort to invest in math and science. We know that math and science is the way of the future. I don't think that I'm not going to say the other areas aren't important, but I think that is very important for us to set the foundation for math and science so that we remain competitive, not just domestically, but also globally. And so making those investments and paying our math and science teachers the highest salaries in the country of math and science teachers in the K-12 system is important. I think that other areas of education deserve to have an increase in funding and certainly increase in pay so that we remain competitive with our surrounding states and states across the country. And so that's our next step. We have to make certain that our children are educated at the highest level. You'll find that in many communities across the state of Alabama, as a result of COVID, we're scrambling, trying to figure out how do we help our children, how do we educate our children at the highest level? Because they missed a lot of instruction. And so it's extremely important that we push after school programs and summer programs to keep those children engaged in curriculum and the intervention that they need so that they can remain on grade level. And those young people that are performing average or above grade level, we're still challenging them to be better and do better than what they're doing. And so there's always room for success and opportunity. And so the other thing that we have to do is we were looking at this legislative session is increasing teacher pay across the board. That also includes support personnel who are on the front line each and every day taking care of our young people. And I think that we have to, without a doubt, congratulate our educators and all those individuals involved in education for the work that they've done. They risk their lives. And so to me, they are also first responders. I mean, they're just as important as the people that are on the front lines each and every day fighting for our country, because they're risking their lives and their family lives to educate our children. And so we should applaud them. The other piece is that our community college system. Our community college system is hands down one of the best in the country because they're focusing a lot of their attention on preparing the workforce. And so they had a restructure of that particular board to add individuals from the industry to that board so that they're able to focus a lot more and that the industry individuals from industry are able to focus and help with curriculum development and also drive the direction of our two-year system so they can truly prepare the next generation or the workforce. And so that we're able to continue to be competitive when it comes to recruiting industry out to Alabama. We're able to point to the success stories and that has happened in our community college system. We're able to point to the success stories that are happening in our K-12 system so that we're preparing the next generation of workers for the jobs that have yet to be created, but also building on the foundation that we have currently within our state. Also in education, we have to make certain that we manage this pandemic. Understand that there may be individuals out there that are pushing against some of the policies and the mandates that they see that's coming from the federal level. But we have to do something to manage this pandemic because guess what? It has already had a devastating impact on our education system. Our young people are behind because they've missed months and months of instruction. And some of the young people across the state that don't have access to broadband have missed more than a couple months of instruction. And so we're in a tough situation. We're in a tough situation as a state and as a country. And so let's put aside all the bickering that we're doing and playing and being tribal on R's and D's on certain issues. But let's come together and understand that we have to defeat the common enemy in COVID-19. And if we do not defeat this common enemy of COVID-19, it's going to continue to impact our businesses. Retail has had a devastating impact on retail. It's had a devastating impact on our restaurant industry, our education system. It has devastated and interrupted our entire economic system and our livelihood, life that we used to know. So let's get this pandemic behind us and comply with all of the rules and the things that are encouraged, that the folks that are encouraging us and following the science. And let's once and for all get rid of this COVID-19 because then we can get back to some normalcy and start operating and being our best and doing our best. Healthcare. I'm a big proponent of Medicaid expansion. And some people may think, oh, Medicaid expansion is another handout. No, it's not. It's a hand up. It's an opportunity to provide health care to the people that were the greatest need in our state. Do you know that expanding Medicaid would go more toward individuals that are working, the working poor? Yes, there's people that are working jobs, working 2 and 3 jobs, that's trying to make ends meet, that can't afford their businesses can't afford, the companies they're working for can't afford to provide health insurance to them. Those are the people that will be provided health care and opportunities if we expand the Medicaid. Expanding Medicaid will create a tremendous amount of job opportunities throughout the state. It'll create opportunities for more small businesses and large businesses to get engaged in the healthcare space. It's a win-win situation, and it's a net gain for our state economically. And so it's a no-brainer. So let's not allow politics to divide us on whether we support healthcare for people. There are more than 38 counties in the state of Alabama where individuals don't have access to an OBGYN. Over 38 counties in Alabama where individuals do not have access to an OBGYN. And we wonder why the maternal mortality rate and infant mortality rate is as high as it is. These are issues that are impacting our friends, our family members, and people all across the state of Alabama that we have to address. And so there has been some funding provided and a study provided and the commission put together to deal with maternal mortality, but we got to do more. We got to figure out how do we incorporate more than just telemedicine, but how do we provide opportunities so that pregnant women or women that are expecting have access to healthcare. The other thing that we must change in this legislative session is extending or expanding healthcare to those individuals that have Medicaid. A pregnant mother that's expecting only have access to Medicaid 90 days after they've given birth. Now we know better than that. The postpartum period, we should extend healthcare for those mothers that have healthcare and Medicaid or have access to Medicaid. We should expand that to at least a year so that we can save lives. It's already been proven across the country. And so we don't have to look any further. And so these are issues that we have to address really soon. The other thing is we gotta do more in preventative care. Right now, in Medicaid, we do not provide reimbursement for dietitians or nutritionists. We do not provide reimbursement for dietitians and nutritionists. We gotta focus on the preventative care. It'll prevent, if we reimburse dietitians and nutritionists, maybe we'll cut down on some of the type 2 diabetes and heart disease and all the things that are plaguing our community. If COVID-19 has taught us something, it has taught us about the vulnerabilities that exist in communities all across the state of Alabama. We're missing over 17,000 individuals that have died as a result of COVID-19. 17,000. Yeah, there are individuals out there that say, they got now hiring signs up all across the state. But folks, we're missing 17,000 Alabamians, over 17,000. And so that could be approximately 17,000 people removed from the workforce, dying removed from the workforce as a result. And so we got to defeat this common enemy. That's why it's important that we defeat this common enemy in COVID-19. Other issues that we have to focus on healthcare is a lot of places across the state of Alabama, particularly in our rural communities, they don't have access to broadband. And so it's very difficult for them to even get telemedicine. And so that's why the ARPA funding is just so important for us to provide more funding and thankful for the bipartisan leadership and the bipartisan legislature that voted for the ARPA funding to go toward volunteer fire departments. And many volunteer fire departments are the first responders in communities all across the state of Alabama. And so it was important that we made those investments in people. We made investments in our healthcare, our hospitals and nursing homes, and assisted living facilities across the state of Alabama. And so there are dollars in there for healthcare. There are also dollars in there for broadband. When we went on when this pandemic began, we didn't have a lot of information. But our young people had to go home and in many communities across the state of Alabama, They had to go up to McDonald's or some local venue to get access to a hotspot in order to do their homework. But there are some communities across the state of Alabama that have been unserved. So we made investments last week in the ARPA funding for broadband access. But the money that we invested, it'll take us about between $3 and $5 billion in order to get access across the state of Alabama. And so it is worth it. Those are investments. We have to make certain that our sewer system, there are communities across the state of Alabama that don't have access to clean water. Yes, in 2022, there are communities that do not have access to clean water. And so the investments that we made in sewer and water systems across the state of Alabama was important. The investment that was made, thankful to the advocacy of our caucus, but our colleague and friend, Representative Kelvin Lawrence, that advocated for his community, but a bipartisan group of people came together and supported our colleague in making certain that his community wasn't left behind in Lowndes County. And so it's examples like that of things that we're doing some good things, but there are some dark days ahead. And so I don't want to make you think that everything is all great and that things are great and that we're going to solve all the problems. There are issues that are long overdue and problems that we have to solve. Our criminal justice system. I've always said that, and our caucus have always said that we cannot build our way out of this problem. We believe that there has to be reform, and we have to focus on reducing recidivism. And we're a country and a community of second chances. And so we have to make certain that we're providing opportunities for individuals to be able to get out and once they've done their time, but we got to provide opportunities for them to be able to become productive citizens. A lot of times when they get job opportunities, when they get out, they never reoffend. And so we have to do a better job of that. And so we got to make certain that we look at the crimes and the laws on the books. That does the time fit the crime? A lot of times, in many instances, we've been so reactive as a country, not just Alabama, but as a country, to individual crime, whether it's marijuana. You get caught with marijuana, but we're throwing the book at you. Those things are unfair. And we have to relook at the system where somebody get caught with marijuana. We shouldn't ruin their lives. And so thankful that the mayor and the leadership of the mayor and the city of Birmingham and what they did to focus on not necessarily using more of a citation structure. And so and the work that the mayor have done in Birmingham has been tremendous. And so other communities across the state. And so it may be at the municipal level that this change happens. And so, but we are appreciative of the work that's going on around the state of Alabama. But we're also dealing with issues that are coming up this week. Permitless carry. That is a particularly concerning issue to me. Some will lead you to believe that this is my Second Amendment. I don't think there are a lot of people that support a person having the right to bear arms and to a person being able to have a gun, a weapon, right? But last year alone, in some communities across the state, there are about 17,000 people denied access to get a gun permit, right? Why? Because many of them were disturbed. We cannot pass a bill that gives a bad guy an opportunity to have a weapon, or someone that may be mentally ill that's been denied access to a weapon and making it easier for them. We got to fight back on pieces of legislation that's extreme, and we're adamantly opposed to allowing permitless carry to pass the Alabama Legislature. And so I ask and urge you to talk to your legislators. Do not pass a bill to make it easier for a bad guy to get access to a gun, or someone that may be mentally ill that have been denied access to a gun. Let's not make it easier for them. Some will lead you to believe that it's about the funding. But you know what? The funding that when you pay for a gun permit, the funding goes to helping with the background checks. And it also helps law enforcement. And so this is an issue that I support law enforcement on. We're on the same side of this issue. There are other issues that we may not be on the same side of. But at the end of the day, we have to communicate with each other because all of us want a better state. But there's certain things, certain ways that we get there. So some of us have a different vision on how to get there. And so communicating is important. And we're communicating a lot in the Alabama legislature. I don't want you to think that this is not a one-sided conversation, but this is a real conversation that we have to have. And so there are other issues that are coming up, like critical race theory. Governor Ivey said in her commercials that critical race theory doesn't exist in Alabama. It's not taught in our K-12 system. And I agree. Critical race theory is not taught. And so let's look beneath and understand exactly what critical race theory is and what it's not. And so some will lead you to believe that driving fear. But those individuals that are driving fear have no solution to solving the problems that's existing each and every day. And so you have to ask them, what are you doing to solve problems? What are you doing to bring us together instead of dividing us? Those are the questions you must ask all representatives, not just me, but ask me as well. But you just got to ask all representatives. I don't care what side of the aisle they're on. You deserve an answer as their constituents. And so while there have been some great things happening, this week we resume the regular session. And so we'll go in. There are a number of bills that are there. A school choice bill, supposed to be the grandmother of all school choice bills. And so some of the details from that particular bill takes about $400 million to allow those dollars to follow the child. For me, I'm not there yet. Let me tell you why. For me, there are things on the front end of education that we've not solved. We tried to put an amendment on the bill several years ago to say, look, if we're going to use public dollars to pay for private schools and give choice, then if that child leaves a public school, then let's track that child to the private school to make certain that they're academically performing at a higher level. But they stripped that bill off the piece of legislation. And so they're in a bill that's called the Accountability Act didn't want any accountability. And so for me, at the end of the day, it's like this. If you have Interstate 65, do you build Interstate 64 besides 65? Or do you repair the potholes that's on 65? It's easier to repair the potholes that's on 65. That's the way that I feel about our education system. It's not perfect, but let's focus on solving the problem instead of creating another situation that's going to create long-term problems long-term. And so I welcome the discussion to talk about academic performance because I believe in it. As a parent of 3 children, I believe in academically performing at the highest level possible, but I believe in preparation. And I don't believe that a one size fits all, but let's solve the problem instead of trying to create another system that have not been proven thus far. And so that's where I am on education issues. That's where I am on criminal justice reform. I believe in it. And I believe in all the things that I've mentioned today. And these are the things that we'll be addressing during the legislative session. And so I hope that we'll be able to pass some criminal justice reform bills. I know that it's an election year and there are a lot of folks that are reluctant to deal with issues that may force them to appear to be soft on crime. But at the end of the day, we have to solve problems. And leaders have to have the courage to solve these problems because they're not going to solve themselves. And that's why they're elected. And so with that, Bishop, I'll entertain any questions anyone may have. Thank you.
I want to thank you for what you've said. As I told them, as I was telling the people that I appreciate the way you talk. You're very straightforward, very clear with what you're saying. Brothers and sisters, I'll tell you, when I first heard him speak, I said, this man needs to run for governor. The way he carries on things that he says, he's very clear with what he's saying, and I think he's got some great ideas. I want to bring our team on board with us right now, several pastors. But I tell you what I want to do is I'm going to bring Representative Hollis online too with us, so that'll have 2 of you all. And when I bring the pastors on, we've got the politicians and we got pastors. So I reference these things as politicians, pastors, and people. And as pastors, we want to represent the politicians. We want to be there in prayer for all those that are our leaders, as Scripture tells us. And then as pastors, we are there also in prayer, and we have a responsibility for our people. So I'm going to bring in Sister, I call her Sister Rolanda Hollis, because she's a member of my church, Representative Daniels, and she's a pretty good sister. I will let you know that. And so I expect her to do well on the House floor, and that she conducts herself in a honorable manner. And you can give me a report now. Right now, I can put her mic on mute, and you can tell me whether she's doing a good job or not, and she can't give you any rebuttal. So,
Well,
Sister Rolanda, well, first of all, let me hear from you, Representative Daniels.
well, it speaks volumes for her leadership. She don't have any opposition, so that tells you she's taking care of business. And it's
Well,
very rare that anyone that's this early in their term not have opposition. So she's a good sister, a strong legislator, and she's going to tell it like it is, and she's not going to hold anybody. Trust me.
well, Sister Ro, go ahead. I give you a minute to make an introduction to the folk before I bring the pastors on. So, just speak there for a moment.
Well, I want to thank you, Bishop, for having me on, and I'm here to support Leader Daniels tonight. So he is the show. So he don't need any backup from me. So whatever. Now, if I need to chime in and help him out, he know I will. So I'm here to support. And what I do want to, I want to thank the gatekeepers. Most of you, well, all of you are my friends, and I appreciate you guys because I'm where I am because of you. And you all have been not just my friends, but my spiritual friends, my spiritual brothers, my spiritual fathers. And most of you let me know when, when I'm wrong, and we don't always agree. And sometimes we butt heads, but at the end of the day, we're still sisters and brothers. So I do want to say to the gatekeepers, thank you. And I love each and every one of you.
Well, all right, Sister Ro. I'm going to bring as we
The
come
thing,
in.
Bishop, this
Yes.
I'm going into my second full term. I had 2 years the first time, 4 years the second time. I'm going to say, and Anthony has been there longer than I.
Well,
Yeah,
I
I've been there
thought
2014, so
since
I'm my
2014.
seventh year.
So it'll be 6 years for me after this term. Can you believe it?
Well, I can't believe it's been all that time because we've been working together. The years have just gone by so swiftly, so swiftly. But let me bring in right now Father Mitch Pacquiao of Ewtn, and Father Mitch, greetings to you. And and if you want to say a word or two to the other guests, I give you a moment to speak to them. But no, let me bring them all in, and we'll let you speak first. And then Pastor Randy Williams of Midway Christian Fellowship. And then we've got our other good brother from Revelation Church, Pastor Michael. There he is somewhere in there, Pastor Michael McClure. So hello to all the brothers, and Pastor Mike, you get your mic. There you go. There you go. And we'll take the order of any questions or any comments you want to make in that reverse order, with you beginning, Father Mitch. Any questions you want to ask
Sure.
Representative Daniels? He spoke to a lot of things there, so I'll give you that, and then Pastor Randy, and then also Pastor Mike. So, Father Mitch, let's hear. Let's speak.
Sure. One of the things that we share in common is that we're both educators. I've taught high school for 5 years and at the university level for 17. And I'm also the product of both public school and private school. Having spent most of my time in Catholic schools, but also private universities, a couple of them, and public school. And so I like what you're saying, and your own background in education is extremely important. And, Alabama's place throughout the states in terms of education quality is pretty close to the bottom, if not at the bottom. We vie with Louisiana and Arkansas and Mississippi for those lower places. So this is extremely important, and it's been something I've talked about a number of times. A couple things that I think one I'd like to see addressed. One, I would strongly disagree that the private school system is untried. It's very well tried, and it's very successful, and more successful than the public schools, not only here, but throughout the United States in terms of the academic scores and the finishing of school, that we have a much higher rate of finishing school through the 16th grade and 12th grade, certainly, but even 16th. And even here in Birmingham, the Cristo Rey School, which is inner city kids, has had since its founding 100% graduation rate and 85% acceptance into college for its students. And this is the same population as in our inner city public schools. Same
Well,
groups
let
of
me
kids.
let me ask you that. Now, Father Mitch, I think you're speaking in terms when you take a private school, you're talking about the Catholic schools. Is that
Catholic schools as one example.
okay?
There are a number of Protestant schools as well, and they do extremely well. My first experience, of course, is with Catholic schools,
Hmm.
but it's also true in some of the other private schools, the religious schools. And
Let's give him an opportunity to speak to that.
So-
then.
so that I'm just saying it's I would contest your premise that they're untested.
So I think
tested
you
and very
misunderstood
successful.
me. I think you misunderstood me. What I said was a child leaving a public school, going to whether it's a private school or charter school, which is public charters, they remove the accountability piece from that particular bill. So if we're tracking a child that's their performance from a public school to a private school, why wouldn't we want to know whether or not that student is performing higher in the private school?
Mhm.
But instead, they stripped that particular piece from the legislation. Number two, what I'm saying is we should not be taking $450 million from the public school and diverting those funds to private schools. Now, many of the students, I have a daughter that's in Catholic school, okay, and I have a son that's in a private daycare. I can afford that as a parent, right? But my thing is, let's fix the system that we currently have before starting a system next to it. And so I'm not opposed to a private school. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I want accountability regardless of what school it is. It is not fair for a child to leave a public school and go to a private school and we not track the child's academic success. That's what I'm saying. So an accountability act is not being accountable.
The reality is they will be tested, and those results are public information.
Not in the private school.
It may not be in the legislation, but you will be able to see the records of how many of those kids graduate. And taking the money from the public schools as an option will then be a motive for public schools to come up to the level of the private schools. That kind of competition will, without a guarantee that you can have all these folks and this money, that money will be yours if you perform. That kind of motivation could be very useful in the public school system.
Show me one example anywhere. You show me one example that has been successful in the United States of America. One example.
One example of what?
Of what you're saying about the private school vouchers, for example, that exist all across the country and other states.
Mhm.
Give me an example of increased academic success from a voucher system, and it has improved academic success for students that are leaving the system.
I'll
There's
raise
none
my
in the
hand.
country.
I will raise my hand. the difference that happened in my own life from going to 2 years of public school to Catholic school was dramatic. My ability to read, my mathematical ability went up.
So
And
I'm
this,
referencing.
and another good example on a larger scale is that the Cristo Rey School here in Birmingham is one of 52. And the same story is true for them across the country. You can examine, if you look up the Cristo Rey School in Chicago, there are 2 of them there, Detroit, Atlanta, Houston, they're across the country, and they are having the same success rate in inner cities with both Hispanic and mostly African American students, but they've had a few in Hispanic areas as well now.
So
And
I'll
so
be-
the same result as a system is going on across the country for poor kids who come from the public schools to the Cristo Rey schools. And all of a sudden, they kick in on a new level.
Okay, Father Mitch, let's give Representative Daniels an opportunity to speak in regards to that.
So you're referencing one school. I'm talking about a system.
I'm talking about a system too.
But
No,
I think Father Mitch, let's see what he's talking about, because I mentioned the word Catholic and what's being done there. Now, there are more than just the Catholic schools.
Exactly.
And I think from what, if I heard what he was saying, there's money that's being taken out of the public school system. And if you will explain that position one more time there, Representative Daniels, so we can get clarity on that. I want to make sure we're discussing the same things, okay?
I think he's referencing Catholic schools only. I'm referencing a whole system. And so I can pick out examples of a public school that's comparable to a Catholic school, but I'm referring to an entire system. So when you're saying, what I'm saying to you is you're speaking specifically to your experience, and you're talking about specifically to a Catholic school. I am talking about an entire system. I can pick my best horse in a public school, just like you picked a Catholic school and you swear by it, and the data probably shows it. But when we're talking about a system, there's no data that you have available that can show you that this model is successful across the board. I can pick and choose winners and losers. You're choosing winners. I can choose a winner, but you cannot tell me that a system that exists where there's success from a public school to a private school across the board. I don't deal in individual schools or types of schools. I deal in an overall system.
And I am dealing with a system as well. This is not an individual school. The Cristo Rey system is applied across the United States only in inner city for mostly African Americans and a few Hispanic neighborhoods.
Well,
they have a system of an education, and that they have applied it from coast to coast, and they have a program of studies that they use, and the kids from the inner city who come from public schools transition to the Cristo Rey system, and they become college accessible.
let me
The
do
only
this.
problem they have is the finances to go to college, but they become successful enough as students to be accepted in their SATs and other scores to go to college.
How
Let's give
many
him a
Cristo Rey
response.
schools exist within the United States of America?
52.
You're talking about 52 schools, and we have 90 schools in the Huntsville city schools. What I'm talking about, a system is across the board. You're talking about 52 schools, and I'm talking about the whole country.
All right,
Let me say this.
over all your schools. We'll show you how
And then
it's
let's
done.
talk about this. Is there tuition who pays the tuition for these kids?
The way that the tuition works, because we know they don't have any money. And so we have a system where 1 day a week, every student goes to work. They get jobs, and the corporations pay the tuition for those students, plus the members of my order do a lot of work of fundraising to supplement the rest. So
Let me interject
even though
here.
they go to school 4 days a week, they outperform the
Yes.
public schools from which they came to our system.
Let me interject here, Father Mitch and Representative Daniels. I
I'm
do
enjoying it.
believe now, when it comes down to the Catholics, they've been doing it a long time. But I think that what Representative Daniels, I think he's saying, I'm gonna bring Pastor Randy Williams in here because he had a school system, and let's get his position on this because I want to bring some other guests in here. But he did have a school that was not Catholic, and I believe the Catholics are tremendously successful, especially Crystal Ray. But we got other schools that we're talking about, and I think that's what Representative Daniels is speaking about. So, Pastor Randy, can you speak a little bit to this and your thoughts on this?
Well, Bishop, thank you. And Representative Daniels, so good to have you with us tonight. Our school, we had a good record. We existed for 35 years, and now our school has become a cornerstone school. So that continues on, although it's not our school anymore. We had a 95% graduation rate, and about it was 90% of our graduates went on to college. We were able to compete with our SATs and our ACT scores with public schools. We were able to exceed them. And part of that is that we have less students per teacher and so on. So the private schools tend to perform well. What I heard the question was, or the issue I think Father Mitch raised originally was that if money is paid to parents who then can put their children in a private school, an incentive goes to the public school system to come up to a higher standard. And I think that was challenged by Representative Daniels. And I think that's a good concept. I don't know anywhere that has happened yet. I'm not aware of how many states have these vouchers and everything. And I don't know where I stand. Obviously, I want people to have the money to put their children wherever they want them. I pay taxes. My taxes go to support public schools, and yet my children attended private school. I think it would be good to be able to have that option. I think the money should go to the parents, not the schools, and then the parents can utilize it for that private education. I think anything that helps our kids, anything that prepares them for life, prepares them for their job, prepares them for their future, anything that we can do is going to help them. I'd like to change the subject here and ask a couple of questions.
Before we do
Daniels,
let me
just for a point of clarity.
Okay.
You said that 17,000 Alabamians have died because of COVID. I don't think you meant to suggest all of them were in the workforce.
No, I didn't suggest that. I said that there are a lot of them that were in the workforce that's missing. A lot of times we're speaking and saying that people are not working, right?
Right.
There are a lot of people that are working, but we have to also acknowledge there are a lot of lives that have been lost. So there are people, many of them are removed from the work, are in the workforce.
I agree.
So
I wanted to clarify that. I agree. Do you have a breakdown on how many of those would have been, say, 20 to 60 that have passed? I haven't seen a breakdown on ages.
I can get it. I don't have the data in front of me. They kind of provide us an update on the lives lost, but we've kind of looked down on different sort of the ethnic groups and the location. A lot of them are in places that are on the heat map, and then there are a lot of lives that have been lost before we knew enough about COVID, and so there are a lot of folks passing in some of these communities that where we didn't have any testing. And they didn't have any hospital opportunities. So there's no autopsies done in those particular areas to determine the cause of death.
Okay, gentlemen, let me do this. I don't want us to get too with two people on. I'm gonna bring everybody on board and we'll just have an open discussion here for a moment. And Representative Hollis, she knows brother, she wants to be in here, so I'm gonna bring her in right now. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in Pastor Mike also. So we're all on board. And I was going to we started with Father Mitch and Pastor Randy. You did have a question there. So how about it, Pastor Mike? Do you have a question that you would like to ask Representative Daniels right now? Okay, I'm not hearing you at this moment. Make sure your mic is not muted so we can hear you. Okay. Okay, I'm not hearing you at this point. So work on that. When you get in there, jump in there, because the mic's not coming through. Okay, we're going. You work on that. See if you can figure out, check out what that is. And Representative Hollis, are you there so we know can hear you right now?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, all right. And so we can't hear past the mic at this point. So let's go back on another question, and then Representative Daniels, anything you'd like to say in another issue you want to qualify? And I'm looking at the audience to see if they have other questions. Anything you want to state in here too?
Yeah, I'd like to go back just for a moment. Point of clarity is that I never made the statement that private schools are not solving problems. What I'm saying is show me the data that informs a decision that I make. There are a lot of states that have voucher systems, but there is no data that shows that has improved the education outcomes. And so, but when I'm speaking about, when I'm dealing with issues, I'm speaking more broadly. I'm not talking about an individual set of schools. Like I have my daughter in Catholic school. So I'm not disputing the success. However, when you're comparing apples to apples, you're looking at poverty, you're looking at all these different dynamics. And so I'm not saying that that school is not performing. What I'm saying is an overall, when you're dealing with a system, you can't pick and choose winners and losers. And so there's no evidence of anywhere in America where voucher systems have improved education outcomes. And I'm speaking in a broader term. I'm not talking about the Catholic school, and I'm not challenging that. And I think I don't want to, I'm not having a conversation about one individual Catholic school or an individual school. I'm talking about a system where we're dealing with, you talked about the inner city. I like to see some data on that.
Okay.
And so my decisions are informed by data, not emotion.
Let's do it this way, because I want to move to other subjects here, but other than school system. Father Mitch, he has just extended you. He said, let me have that data that you have. So let's write that down so we can get that to him so I can get to some other points here. Okay.
And I would just say, check the Milwaukee school system where they gave vouchers, and the students using the vouchers to go to other schools saw this tremendous success.
Okay, Father Mitch.
That's one good example.
Let's do this, Father Mitch. Write down some of those. He has asked to see it. Let's get it to him. That's what we need to do to our representative.
One last point, Bishop, I'd like to make.
Okay, then I want to move from education.
Yeah, when we're comparing this data, if I'm in a system that my kids have to go to, if I can afford to transport them to the school, I'm serious about my child's education. I'm going to do that. I'm looking at kids that don't have those options as well. And so I want to look at the full picture. I'm not looking at an abbreviated version of the
That's
picture.
what I'm looking at too.
Okay. So done. Last words on that. Let's go to redistricting, because that's a subject. I mean, y'all talk, you got educators up there. I mean, Representative Daniels is an educator. Father Mitch is an educator. So y'all are talking education. But the federal court said last week, three judges ruled that Alabama might be in violation of the Voting Rights Act, and the state should have maybe another district. Can you speak to that, Representative Daniels? Because are they going to rewrite it? What's going to happen? I think the people need to hear about that too.
So the three-judge panel ruled that there is an opportunity to create an additional majority-minority district within the congressional district within the state of Alabama. And so this, once that ruling came down from the three-judge panel, the Attorney General of the state of Alabama appealed the decision. And once he appealed that decision, the higher courts ended up staying that same decision and coming with the same premise that there could be a creation of an additional majority, minority, or at close to, 50%. And so right now, I think they're appealing to the Supreme Court level. And so the Supreme Court will hear it. But in the meantime, we are expected to look at drawing an additional majority or opportunity district that's could be up to 50% minority congressional district. And so
Let me
that
ask you, would that mean we would have another person like Terry Sowell that might get in there?
there's the possibility of having an additional member of Congress like Congresswoman Sewell. That is absolutely
Okay. Now that won't, for everybody needs to know, that won't add an additional representative for the state of Alabama. It would
no.
just be redrawing the line so that the minority might be able to have more of an opportunity to have a voice in Washington, correct?
Correct. So there are 7 districts, and so the number of districts will not change.
Okay.
Based upon the last census report, we remain, Alabama have 7 congressional districts. We've increased in population slightly, but there are other states that have reduced in populations greatly. So they ended up, Alabama was slated to lose a district before the reapportionment and also before the census. But we ended up, there are other states that had a reduction in population that where they ended up losing a seat, and Alabama ended up maintaining their 7 congressional districts. And so what ended up happening is there's a couple options that have been proposed on the table. Congressional District 2 is within the Wiregrass, and Congressional District 1 is down in Mobile. And so there's a possibility that a district could be created where the member of Congress that's in Congressional District 1 and 2 may have to run against each other. And so one of them will end up losing a congressional district. There are also conversations about where there's a vacancy. There's a vacancy in North Alabama where there's not an incumbent running for Congress as an open seat. And so there's conversations about, is there a way to create a majority, minority, or up to 50% minority district in North Alabama to solve the same problem so that you don't have to eliminate a seat to where 2 members of Congress end up running against each other.
Could that mean we would have 2 Democrats in Washington?
That is certainly an option that's on the table. A state that we have 7 members of Congress, a state that's about 40% Democrat only has 1 member of Congress that's Democrat in the state of Alabama. So gerrymandering is regardless of which party is in charge, gerrymandering is something that happens, but you cannot redraw districts based upon race. That was the initial piece where you just put all African Americans, just spread them out in different districts. So there are voting rights violations. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act has been challenged by some of the folks that are on the other side of this particular issue. And so I think they're going to be awaiting the U.S. Supreme Court to rule on a number of issues and then go back to the 3-judge panel to address some of the other lawsuits that are on the table. So there are 3 lawsuits on the table. And the one that was decided on is the one that was, I think, may have been filed back in 2017.
Okay, and that's I think the state has tried to get a stay. Will that
Yes,
mess
the
up
Holder Group is behind that lawsuit, the National Redistricting Foundation.
Okay, won't that mess up what we're trying to do with elections coming up? I mean, you're going to have to redraw districts, and that means people are going to have to. How are they going to run their race when they might not be in the same district if that gets changed?
So the courts ruled that they had until February 11th
Yes.
to redraw the districts. There is no urgency to redraw the districts until the courts stayed the decision. And so now they're trying to get the U.S. Supreme Court to respond fairly quickly so that they don't have to actually do anything with them. But I think that right now, the goal is that we have to redraw lines by February 11th. And if we don't, then you may stand a chance of where the courts end up drawing it or putting together a group to draw the lines. And I don't think anyone wants that.
No, I don't think so. Okay, I think Pastor Mike is back with us. Pastor Mike, are you there? Is your volume there? Got a question? So, Pastor Michael McClure, that's who I'm speaking about. Are you there? I don't think he's hearing me. Uh, okay. Well, all right. Let's go back and get another question. Yeah, he had to step out again. We're missing him. Let's go back to Pastor Randy. You have another question, and I'm gonna look at questions in the audience right now. If you go ahead and if you have one point.
Yeah, I have a question about criminal justice. One of the contributing factors is absentee fatherism, absentee fathers in the home. There are 30% of Alabama families are without fathers. Is there anything that the legislature can do to address this issue, to help societally in this issue of absentee fathers?
I think that when you're dealing with issues regarding family, I think the government's role in trying to do that, they typically fund programs or initiatives that may help with some of that. But because of the sensitivity of the issue, I don't think the government will play a leading role in trying to do that. While I agree, I do think that we got to focus on getting families being together, but I don't think necessarily the government's role is to be as a leader in that particular situation. I think we should certainly want to do what we can to help promote or support those type of efforts, but it's not necessarily our role. And I don't
Okay.
think we would take an active role in that particular situation. While I understand what you're saying.
Got another question from the audience I'd like to go in here. This one is from Kirsten Johnson. She says, Legislative Daniels, what are your thoughts regarding the critical race theory? Should this be taught in the schools? And I think the governor said it's not being taught, but she wants to get your position. She said there's been much divide regarding the topic. And we're back on education again. So
in looking at some of the bills that dealt with critical race theory, it appears that we're trying to, I don't think the individuals that are actually dealing with critical race theory or CRT actually know what it means. I think they're responding to individuals that are loud and in their ear about CRT and not necessarily without a full understanding. For me, I'm going to test that theory this week by offering an amendment to continue to teach Black history and other history that's being taught in the school to see how the bill sponsor respond to it. And so, is it really about critical race theory? I've never been taught in a K-12 setting, period, to dislike or hate any race. I just believe that if we're going to be taught history, we should be taught the full story, regardless of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so it appears to me that individuals are making an attempt to undermine the teaching of history in general. And so I think what it will leave is it'll leave our educators that are teaching this, it'll leave them in limbo and afraid to even teach certain aspects of history. And so I think we got to be very clear. And our job as legislators are mainly as appropriators. But when it comes to developing policy with school systems and trying to push policy with school system, that's not necessarily our role.
okay. I would think, okay, Pastor Randy, let's go.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? If history should be taught good, bad, and ugly, where do you stand on the removal of statues?
So yeah, and I don't know that for me, from my constituents, my responsibility is to my constituents, and my constituents are for the removal of statues and believe that they should be moved to like the Confederate Park in off of 65. They believe that there's a place for them, but not being prominent in front of a courthouse of where people of color have to walk there each and every day to whether it's handling business in general. And so I don't think anyone wants to saying that the history should be removed, but they're saying that there's a place for them in a museum or some type of place where you can deal with that, but not prominently placed in front of a courthouse where people are going to conduct business.
Isn't that also part of the argument on CRT that some are saying it should be taught at the university level? There's a place for it, but not in the lower grades.
But it is taught at the university level. It is taught. It's not taught in the K-12 system. So I don't understand.
Right. Well, but I understood you wanted it taught in the K through 12 system. Is what
No, I
I'm.
never said that. I never said. I said that. I want Black history and other history taught. I
Right.
didn't. CRT is not even taught in the K-12 system. It's at the
Okay.
collegiate level, and many of it's in law school. A lot of folks there say they've been taught in law school.
Right.
So it's not
Let's
necessarily something that's taught in the K-12 system.
So you're
let's
not
get
for
past
having it taught in the K-12 system.
well.
It's not being taught in the K-12 system.
Right. But I'm asking, are you for it being taught or not for it? I'm trying to find your position.
I've never been taught. I've never been taught critical race theory myself, so I don't know the content. And so for me, as an educator, you got to look at the curriculum. Is it sensitive to someone at a young age? It may not be sensitive to someone. I don't know if it's appropriate for a person at a young age, right? And so it deals more with the content of it. And so without seeing the actual curriculum and the content of it being taught in law school, and I've never been to law school, it's hard for me to just kind of tell you whether it should be taught or what should be taught in the K-12 system.
Let me get past the mic in there. Are you able to speak right now so we can hear you, bro?
Praise the Lord.
Thank you. All
Hey.
right.
I didn't do anything though. I don't know.
Okay. Well, we couldn't hear you, but go ahead. You got a comment you want to make in here right now. Let's
Sure.
get you in there.
Let
So
me
if,
touch back. Let me do just a small reflection on one or two thoughts I heard. First of all, good evening to everybody. And Representative Daniels, I'm very proud of your bio. Look like you've done some great things. And yeah, like you'd be a great, great, great man for governor. But I looked at this deal that I think it was Pastor Randy said that he paid taxes, but his kids went to private school. I hope everybody remember that wherever the child go, that money goes with that child. So I don't think that's paying tax into the public school if your child is not there, because funds follow the child. Secondly, and I could be corrected on that. Number two, when we talk about the statues being removed, and we need to learn all history. I do believe all history need to be taught, but I teach on the devil, but I'm not going to put a statue of him in front of my church. I think all things have their place, and these monuments should be properly stored in their proper places. Now I have a question for Representative Daniels. Sir, my question is, I believe when I was reading your bio, I observed where you and your wife, Dr. Daniels, own 2-3 businesses or something like that. Do you have any plans to offer any legislation at any point that support small businesses? Not just small businesses for Black men and women, but small businesses, period. Hopefully the Blacks would have an opportunity to own businesses, and we deserve to do so. But our country is really built, the strength of our country is on the back of small businesses and in the communities. Do you have any plans for any legislation in that area?
So I've introduced a number of pieces of legislation and supported and really, as they say in Montgomery, help bake the cake for other pieces of legislation that deals with small and large businesses. And so that last year we passed a bill that gave access to capital, an access to capital bill that will provide access to capital for businesses that move in rural and underserved areas. And so that particular bill passed the House. That was something that we worked on. Representative Hollis was a part of that group. We met for 8 months to bake that cake. The other thing is I am very support of during the pandemic, there are a lot of small businesses that have gone under, particularly about 40-something% of Black owned businesses went under and not able to return as a result of COVID-19. And so what you begin to see is we're having conversations about when we do what we call a Revive Alabama. So we gave out grants. What the grants were for the persons that were able to get to the website the fastest. That is not necessarily solving the problem. We have to identify businesses that were significantly impacted by the pandemic, and we have to tier it. Our restaurant industry barely got support during the pandemic, right? They went under. And so we have to figure out ways to allow our restaurant industry and retail industry without actually bailing them out, but giving them an opportunity to build back a pandemic-proof business that allowed them to be able to get more in the transportation, the food industry, restaurants. You saw them utilizing DoorDash and other services. But there are some that didn't have the capital to create this infrastructure to do that. And so we got to make certain that we're making investments to help them help us, because long term we want the tax revenue. And so we got to make certain that we're helping them help us long term, continue to pay taxes and continue to operate. But making certain we're helping them with the business plan that fits the restaurant industry, that'll help increase their bottom line based upon the success stories of larger businesses that had the capital. The other piece is access to capital has been a tremendous problem, especially among small businesses across the state of Alabama, particularly people of color, where they are not banked, they're unbanked. A lot of times we are having a hard time getting access to capital because we don't have the assets or the land and all these different things that are required to get access to the capital to start a business or to continue a business. And so we've had conversations in depth about how do we put more resources and get access to capital where we may share some of the risks of the banks to help some of these disadvantaged businesses long term so that they can grow. And so those are the type of policy conversations that disrupt the system, the systemic system that have been in place that have hurt a lot of these businesses from having opportunities. So I'm more interested in how do we attack the systemic problem as opposed to just giving $20,000 per business. So that's not sustainable long term. And so that's where I've been focusing a lot of my attention.
Gotcha.
All
Thank
right.
you so much, sir.
Okay. Do you have another question, Pastor, before you go?
I'm good. I'm good at the moment.
Okay. I'm going to speak. We'll go to critical race theory. Is that when I was in the 4th grade, now I'm probably one of the older ones that's on here, but I wasn't taught critical race theory, but I was taught that the slaves were happy and their best friends were the master and all, and they did not want to be free. So it's and I remember that in my No Alabama book, and I think I was about in the 4th grade. So we do know that government does have a way of positioning things, but as a person of history, person to study history, I believe that history should be taught. I think one was saying good, bad, and ugly, and just do it fairly and let people make their own choices of what it is. I want to get Pastor Randy back in here because he's got a word and something. You got another question you want to ask?
Actually, no, I just wanted to say to Representative Daniels, I enjoyed getting to know you tonight. My phone is about to die. I might have to sign off. And I just want to tell you, thank you for joining us. I enjoyed it.
Okay, then. Well, thank you for being a part of it, Pastor Randy. And
Y'all have a good night.
Okay, we will see you next go around. And Sister Rowe is there coming in there with something. She said she wants to see everybody's responses. So
Yeah, I was getting ready to go.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
you know,
in the room too long.
hey, look here. If it had been your meeting, you would have been going on and on and on talking. So don't even start that, girl. All right. Come on. Okay, Father Mitch, you got a question that you want to ask?
One of the things that I think go along with the business issue and education is, what are we doing in the education system to train the kids to get into business so that they have, some skills to start their own businesses? And, not only some hopefully some opportunities to get started, but a variety of skills, and not just in the food industry, but also in a variety of trades, and being able to move to start small businesses in here we live in Birmingham, but in the cities, in the small towns where they live. That's one of the things that I would like to see as a way to help folks moving up.
I think what you're beginning to see in some cities, especially, you're beginning to see a lot of the programs that are starting to call, I forget the name of them, but the accelerators. And those are more from the private sector, but they're public dollars that are awarded to accelerators to be able to start in certain areas. You have an accelerator that's called, I think, Bronze Valley or something in the Birmingham region. You have here in the Huntsville area, there's an accelerator, and there are other companies that have been awarded money from Commerce to do accelerators. As it relates to the curriculum, it is very challenging to create new programs universally across the curriculum when there are so many demands and requirements on what has to be taught in the length of time it has to be taught. Now, is there room to advocate for business and entrepreneurship as an elective in K-12? I think there is. I think there are a lot of courses that, your senior year, many of the students are basically taking whatever. It's like a break before your freshman year of college. And so you're only taking a certain amount of courses. So I think that there could be room. I think we added a year or two ago, we added computer science courses to help kind of thinking more of the technology piece and steering people in that direction. But I think some of the nonprofits and the roles of the nonprofits currently could focus on the actual entrepreneurship. I think that some of our universities are doing it. Alabama A&M has a entrepreneurship program, and I think many of the other four-year institutions are starting to do that in their business schools. But I think that in order for us to really do that, now I did visit Jeffrey Canada's Harlem Children's Home about 2.5, 3 years ago, and I took folks from the state government. I invited someone from DHR so that we can look at the holistic approach. And I was very interested to see the after-school programs. They were teaching some of the things that you're talking about business. They were teaching, not just teaching the kid how to get into the entertainment business because of their interest, but they were also teaching them how to run that business. And so they were teaching them all aspects of it that kind of helped them understand the big picture. And so that was done through a nonprofit. So I don't really see, curriculum-wise, I don't see anything that will stop us from pushing an elective that can be taught on the introductory to entrepreneurship.
Okay. Let me go in on just some real quick answers if we can get it. What's the possibility of in dealing with, because these are things, grocery tax that hits the low wage earners harder than anything else? Are you all making any move on that issue?
There's members that have introduced eliminating the grocery tax bill in the House of Representatives. 2 Democrats that have introduced bills on that. Representative Mary Moore, I think, introduced a bill on eliminating the grocery tax, as well as Representative Penny McClammy also introduced a bill on removal of the grocery tax.
Do you get any support from the Republicans on that?
Yes, I think that because of the gas tax and its
That's the next issue I want to talk about.
Impact, I think you're beginning to see get an appetite to deal with providing tax breaks for small businesses or business in general, as well as removing the grocery tax. Now, here's the thing that I will say. We can remove the tax off groceries, but until we deal with the supply chain issue in this country and in this state, you're going to pay it for the increase on the product. And so we got to figure out how do we deal with that and then the impact that'll have. Local cities, some cities depends solely on the taxes from groceries in their local communities.
But don't you think that's unfair, Representative? Unfair? Don't you think that's unfair to the low wage earner? They have to pay tax on the food that they eat.
So I agree with you. However, I just think that when you're talking about, you got to think about the interruption that it'll have in local communities.
What about the interruption to the people that are not being able to pay with all the prices of food going up and taxes goes up with it as it costs more? That seems like that should be something that our legislature should investigate.
As I mentioned, we've introduced a bill to do it, but I'm just telling you where the pushback is coming from. The pushback is from those municipalities that depend solely on that. Okay. Now, they're fine with us taking it off the state, the percentage that the state collects,
But they
They're
want
fine
their
with us
municipal
eliminating
tax.
that portion.
Mhm.
But when you get into communities and municipalities removing and trying to tell them to remove their 2
Okay.
cents or whatever, then you're going to have pushback. You're never going to get that passed.
I do understand, and that should be taken up locally with each municipality. But as far as the state's concerned, we should remove that, I think, from the tax that we have. What about gasoline tax? That was just a couple of years ago. They pushed through in a session. They called a special session. The governor wanted to increase gas tax by 10 cents. Any possibility of us getting that removed?
So the movement for the gas tax piece, and it was, they talked about infrastructure. You've seen a lot of roads and a lot of people taking advantage of that. However, the full 10 cents is not necessarily hit yet, and so
Not yet.
it was kind of phased in,
That's
right?
correct.
And so it was phased in. But I think right now, when we're getting a lot of these federal dollars that are coming out and money from the infrastructure bill, we may need to revisit that. But the other thing is, for me, you know, I'm promoting more of the electric vehicles, and so sooner or later I won't have to deal with the gas at all. So, Pastor, I think you you may want to consider getting electric vehicle.
Yeah, but how much more do I have to pay for that vehicle that in order to get one now? All right, but so that's not necessarily going to pass that we're going to make anything with gasoline tax this session, correct? That's
No,
what you
I
think?
don't think anyone. I don't even think you want to have a discussion about the gasoline tax in the
Gosh.
legislature.
Okay, well, my 2 pastors that are on there, I think that's regressive. I mean, to do that especially when American Rescue Fund has put all this money out here for infrastructure. I'm gonna move on beyond that.
But I
What
will tell you,
about?
Pastor, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Okay,
But when I talked about this in 2014, as of 2015, as a young legislator, my first year, they wouldn't even let the bill come up in a committee.
you mean to take off that 10 cent?
Remove the tax, yeah, because
Yeah.
you have municipalities after you. You have all
Oh,
these folks, because I didn't understand it into its entirety that it impacts cities, revenue for cities too.
just like we have cities that are going to have policemen patrolling to make money off of writing tickets. Let's go to gambling at this point right now. And the Porch Creek Indians are pushing that issue, telling us to get on you guys legislative role and all the others and call y'all up and say, let's get a gambling bill. What's the minority saying about that right now?
We've always been in support of a comprehensive package. And
Okay.
so what ended up happening the last time, there are some concerns of some of our members in our caucus are in communities that would have been eliminated, right? And so they've
Yes.
had constitutional amendments. And so the pushback was these communities would have been eliminated, and they were talking about the jobs that would have impacted their communities, saying that we passed our constitutional amendment and now the state wants to undo something that we already created and voted on as a community. And so there are some conversations about how you want to pick winners and losers. And so
That's right.
that was kind of the tone and the tenor of the conversation. But I think right now there has been conversations that have been started back up. Now, I don't have a casino in Huntsville, in Madison County.
Mhm.
So it wasn't an issue that I was willing to jump out there and say, you're wrong and you're right. Because I have to assume that this is my community that's being impacted when I'm making decisions in the legislature. And so not making a decision on behalf of a community that this may be their largest employer, right? And so, but what can we do in that community to create jobs that may not necessarily be a casino? And so until we start addressing, don't ask me to support something if we're not replacing those jobs. Let's replace the jobs, right? And then have the discussion. But
Well, I
not,
would think that it would be unfair to tell people that have been already doing it, already grandfathered in, you can no longer do this because we're going to favor Birmingham and all the places where they currently exist. I know there's a big group out there that's pushing. I want to get Father Mitch in here too, since he's probably one of the most conservative in regards to gambling. And I think, would you have any words? Our legislature is going to do it, I think. Wouldn't you agree, both representatives here? It's going to occur at some time in the future. Would you all say that that's going to happen?
At some point it will, but my position is a position of what my caucus wants me to do because I don't have any operators in my district. And
Okay.
so I have to listen to the caucus members, but the caucus was split on the issue. Some that were in favor, some that felt that they needed to be able to protect their communities. And so my position as the leader is to make certain that we're getting everyone moving in the same direction. And I thought we had an agreement toward the end, but it ended up breaking down in the last hour.
Father Mitch, you want to speak to, well, I know your position on this.
Yeah, my concern is that gambling becomes a means of a lot of people looking for it as a source of wealth and income, not just recreation. And in a place like Gulfport, Mississippi, which had legalized it, they began to see, they looked at it as jobs, and it would increase income and tax revenue into the county. But then they found that they had one of the highest rates of going bankrupt in the country because the locals were spending their money in gambling beyond what they could afford, and it was undoing lower income folks. And I hate to see folks using a fantasy about getting rich and commercials and billboards telling them I won this much money when the house gets to keep 60% of the take and 40% of it is distributed among the various other players. I don't see that as a winning situation, except for the people that own and run the casinos. My
So
dad
would you-
worked in the race industry, horse and dog races and harness racing. And
Considering Father Mitch,
yeah,
considering Father Mitch that this probably would go, would you then suggest to the representatives that some funds be set aside so that for the problems that get created, there might be something established for those that the troubles that come up with gambling?
I would like to see very upfront and honest statements about the way that this works, so folks can understand. Here's the percentage that the house will get. Here's what's going to be distributed among all you gamblers. Let them know ahead of time that, like in Illinois, we had a different situation. We had a lottery. And what they didn't tell people, especially the poor, is that if you won the lottery, first thing you had to do was pay the state back for all the welfare or Medicare you had ever gotten in your life.
Okay.
They didn't tell them until after they won. So people are spending part of the little money they have to gamble on a lottery, and then they don't get to keep it if they do win.
Well, that sounds like a good idea. Pay the state back. All right. That's good.
Let them get a job.
All right. Pastor Mike, any word on that? Then we're going to get ready to bring it down because we've taken a lot of the representative Simon here. I very much appreciate
In
it.
the word on the gambling?
Yeah, okay. What do you, because he said there's a lot of challenges in there. You've got a push coming from a large group. Let him tell it. Do it.
So
Both of them. You got both of them, and they probably getting lobbied a whole lot by the big gambling interests. Would that be true?
yeah, I think for me, addressing some of the concerns of the communities that felt that they had the constitutional amendment and this bill would undo that.
That's not fair. I would say, well, I think the pastors would agree that that's not fair. Would you, gentlemen, pastors, would you agree? They gave them the right to do it. Now, if there's a new bill coming out, take it away from them. Would you all agree? Is that right?
No, it's not right.
Okay. Now look, we don't want to be partisan one way or the other to both our representatives here. We just want to look at it from the standpoint of what is right and wrong. And we do know that, I think wholeheartedly, we're not in support of gambling. I think I can say that for each one. But we realize there's a tidal wave that's coming this way. So in order with that tidal wave, The reasonable thing we can do is let's figure out how we can lessen the sting that's going to go with it. And there should be a way. You're going to do it right, be fair with it, and don't tell people that have been accustomed to do it, we're shutting you down because we're going to make it be favorable over here. You've heard our word. That's what I think we all stand for as pastors.
So I think we're working through those particular issues. Some of the operators were there are certain proposals put together that allowed them to operate a certain period of time, give them time to kind of decide that, you know, whether they want to move to try to get another license once the commission to start. But there's a lot of uncertainty in that particular situation. There are other dynamics beyond just having facilities that we were concerned about. We're concerned about the vending service, making certain that the vending services and contracts were reflective of the communities that they were. Making certain that all of the opportunity for operators. If a facility closes and they want to sell, then looking at the prevailing ethnic minority of that community, giving them an opportunity to put together a group to purchase the facility.
Okay.
Looking at scholarship opportunities as a lottery proceeds to pay for at least 2 years of college, right? Looking at sort of a model like the Tennessee Promise and the Hope Scholarship, but more in the two-year portion of that. And so we wanted to make certain that if we're going down this road, that the folks that we represent will get something out of it long term and create a generational opportunity for them to be successful generationally, not just something that is just just lip service. For me, my comments to them was, I am not operating in good faith if it can be reduced to writing, period. Because if something happens tomorrow to the person that gave me their word that it will happen this way, it will never happen. So unless it can be reduced to writing, it is not reality.
That's correct. Okay. All right. So if there's anything else, I don't see any other questions coming from any of our viewers out there right now. So I want to give, and since Father Mitch actually started, Pastor Mike, is there any other question you want to ask? Then I'm going to turn it over to Representative Rowe, who said quietly, amazingly, have you noticed it? She has not really said anything. So we know there's something over there that's being contained, and we don't want it to blow up all of a sudden. You know how it is. So both of you pastors know it, and Father Mitch, you know that. So anything you want to say, Pastor Mike, before we get ready to conclude?
Now, I want to, myself or Representative?
No, you first, then I'll go to Representative Rowe.
Okay, well, thank you so much again. I want to say thank you again to Representative Daniels, yourself, Father Mitch, amen, our great biblical historian, and of course, Representative Hollis. Been a great time. I've been enlightened. I've really heard a lot that's really caused me to question some things in my mind. I got to sit back and reflect upon before I can formulate a question, because it's really some things that really were said that really opened my eyes to some deals. I do have a question. Are we no longer fighting? No, I should reword. Let me rephrase. Is the fight no longer against gambling because of its moral entities?
No, it's not. I think we're beyond that. I think looking at all the data that talks about the percentage of people in Alabama that supports the lottery and support gaming in general.
Right.
I think that the polling data is beyond that.
Right. So let me clarify, because that's what I thought I was hearing. So it's no longer about it being right or wrong. We're beyond right and wrong, correct?
That's correct.
Then that battle is lost.
Well, what I think, Pastor, well, I think, again, we have failed in the pulpit of getting that message across. We lost that battle. And you know, so the public has accepted it like so many other things. And you know good and well, don't get me started. Public has accepted a lot of things that are biblically incorrect, and now it's made normal. And so all I'm saying is how to restrain the damage that's going to be done as a result of it. So I think the right or wrong battle is lost. I still
I agree.
Okay. Did that answer your question there?
It did. I thought that's what I was hearing.
I think the representatives are just representing the constituency that they have that want to do this. And in our churches, and Father Mitch, he probably might know because they have to give confession, but I bet you he has heard folk that have gone over to Georgia or Mississippi in his confession. And if we look at him, he's probably not going to tell it.
There's no probability at all. I can't.
Okay, and let me tell both representatives, he is from Chicago, so he knows how the stuff can go. And he was back under the Daily machine, so he knows those things. So with that being said, let me get Commissioner, oh gee, let me get Representative Rowe. No, don't go there. Representative Rowe to have a word to say, and she hadn't said a word at all, so go.
I'm gonna let you pass on that one.
I slipped.
You did. I want to first thank my minority leader for coming on here. Also, it was stated that in the year of 2035, all cars will be electric, just to let you know that. And I would like
I don't agree. I disagree.
Excuse me? You
I don't
interrupted?
agree. I don't agree.
Well, I'm just telling you what
y'all been told.
and what the agenda was. So maybe
I believe it's an agenda. Yeah.
than what I do. I'm just giving you information, Bishop.
Okay.
Why are you interrupting me?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Don't let me speak. I was quiet the whole time.
Okay, you're right.
Okay. Now, as I was stating, I would like for one of you guys to send me where in the Bible where it talks about gambling. I would love to know what it said in the Bible about gambling. I'm still talking, Bishop.
You asked.
I said send it to me, or you can speak when I finish speaking. But I would like to know where it is and what does it say, state in the Bible about gambling. That's all. That's what I asked. And the last thing is that I'm glad that you guys were listening and letting what all was said tonight settle, because it is a lot of information. And you have to remember that Leader Daniels and I are 105. And so it's a fight every day trying to pass bills or trying to get everyone to go along on an agenda. And like he said, one bill that passed, it took us 8 months, and we had both parties in a room together, and we had straight talk with one another. And so that's how we were able to pass that bill. So when you talk to us, just remember that we won a 105. And, and if you have issues with anything, talk to us. Don't, come out fighting us, but talk to us so you can have an understanding on what is exactly going on and what we have to deal with on a day-to-day when we're down there. And I'm easy to talk to, but I'm gonna say what's on my mind and state what is really happening. And I'm always gonna be truthful to you. And again, I just want to thank all of you for always supporting and being behind me and everything that I do. And as I stated earlier, we don't always agree, but at the end of the day, we work something out. So, and again, I want to thank my leader. And I hope, Bishop, you're not too long-winded, because, I do have to pack. We do have to be in Montgomery tomorrow.
That is
and
correct.
Daniel have a long, whip when he's trying to get you into place and he wants you there to vote. And I don't want him sending the state troopers after me because I'm late. Okay.
Well, we know you're not going to speed down the road, even if they stopped you, they can't give you a ticket. So, right.
Well, like I said, I just don't want you to be long-winded. Close it out, because we do have to pack.
Yes.
And to Montgomery. And if I'm late and Leader Daniels have to send a state trooper to come and get me because they need a vote, then I'm gonna blame it on Bishop Lowe.
There are other pastors involved here too, and priests. Okay. All right.
Now, can I just respond to your place in the Bible about gambling?
Yes.
First, the people of Israel had plenty enough sense to know not to do that foolishness. So they didn't have law about it because they didn't do it.
So in other
Secondly,
words,
the only time there is gambling that goes on in the Bible is one time. And that wasn't any Israelites. It was the Roman soldiers throwing dice for Jesus' clothes while he's hanging on
Okay.
the cross.
So
Apart
in
from
other
that,
words,
there is no gambling in the Bible. So if you
okay.
want to go with the Romans, go ahead.
All right. Well, let me speak to that since I'll do it just for a moment. It goes against the principle of the fundamentals of what the Word of God is about. You know that we're to work for a living. We're to do things that a laborer is worthy of his hire. What happens is gambling. There is always a winner and there is a loser, and it is in a sense robbing some when they do gamble. They put their hard-earned money out there. And as you know, the way it's set up, it goes against the principles of love
Okay,
and
so
what Christ
so
taught.
talk about the principle of it, but I just wanted my question answered that it
Well,
does not state anything other than what Father Mitch said
I
about
got a lot more for you, though.
so that's all I that's
But we're fine.
I
I
do
can
agree
do a
with you.
lot.
I do
But I am
agree.
also practical,
I do
saying,
agree.
recognizing that there is no
I don't
clear,
think we
thou shalt
necessarily.
not gamble.
I just asked the question.
I'm answering you. There
I
is
don't.
no thou shalt not gamble. Okay.
Okay,
So I got that. But I say the principle of what's there
okay.
about love. And when what happens, someone is
But
going to always lose
isn't
in a,
that with anything that we do, Bishop?
ma'am.
Isn't that with anything that we do?
Well, I'm
Isn't
going against the principle of the
talk
word of God.
about
Yes, ma'am. It's a
principle
lot of things we're
about
doing that are
love
violating the word of God.
with everything that we do, right?
Wait a minute. It's the thing we do violate his word? Yes, we do that.
Okay.
Psalm 2nd chapter clearly states that what government will do and people will do will rail against God. All
Okay.
right. Okay. All right. Now, Representative Daniels, we're going to give you the final word right here. And this is the way we carry on when we have our gatekeepers meeting. There are more of us. And imagine a room full of pastors and Representative Rowe. Sometimes we have to have meetings without her, okay? Because we can't get a thing done because she's going to take a stand. Okay. So, Representative Daniels, I want to give you the final word here. Thank you so much. And to everybody else that's out there, I want them to recognize that this is the way you need to communicate with your representatives and your state senators. You need to know who they are. It is an election year coming up, and you may not have choices as the fine people that we have here tonight with Representative Daniels and Representative Hollis. A lot of those folk out there are not qualified in ways that are good to serve you. They are not qualified, but they are running and they will get elected because you don't pay attention to who they are. These two people that are here don't mind talking to you and don't mind sharing with you. So I thank both of them for doing that. But I want the public to understand it's time we become educated and talking to these people like this. And they've given us our time, which means they're not afraid. But recognize this, there are judges that are up for election this time, and you don't want no dumb judges. So you better find out about what's going on with these judges, because these judges can mess up your life like crazy. One person, and they are judge, juror, and they will lynch you too. Now, maybe I shouldn't say that word, but they can do you in. So, Representative Daniels, I had my final word right there. So I'm just encouraging people to get involved with the process. Let's get the righteous people the best we can in charge. So, Representative Daniels, I'm giving you the close since you got to get on the road. Are you in Huntsville tonight?
Yes.
Okay, so you got to get down there to Montgomery also. So let's give him the final words and let him have this closing statement. Very good opening. Thank you so much, and thank you, Commissioner.
You gonna stop calling me commissioner? That's your friend over there.
Okay, all right,
I am your pastor,
Representative.
your spiritual daughter, your church member, and your state representative.
Yes,
Where
ma'am.
the church now lie, and I am state representative Rolanda Hollis. There is not a seat in state representative.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Uh,
You're not helping them finish up early.
Okay.
Representative Daniels, please, we give you the concluding remarks now.
Well, thank you, Bishop, and thank you guys for having me. Thank you, Representative Hollis, for uh, reaching out and making it possible. And thank you to all of us the panelists that were on tonight. I really enjoyed myself. But understand that for me, when you're making decisions on behalf of an entire state, every decision that you make, some are decisions that you believe are the right decisions in your heart, but others are influenced by data. And when you look at data, you cannot make a decision based upon emotion. You have to look at the data. You have to look at it holistically. And so I'll welcome anyone any day in any discussion. But know that any decision that I make is going to be on behalf of the people that I represent, and always open to challenge even some of the decisions that I make. But I want to make certain that uh, we can understand each other, and we can dialogue in good faith, and understand each other to a point to where my experiences may not be your experience and your experience may not be my experiences. But at the end of the day, our job is to solve problems, and that's what I want to do. And so I want to thank all of the viewers that are online for tuning in. And like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed myself and appreciate all the questions and everyone that's responsible for this wonderful organization. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for what you do in the community to serve the community, not just your congregation, but also serving the entire community and leading God's word. So thank you for your time. God bless you, and God bless the great state of Alabama.
Thank you very much. And to everyone that's there, thank you so very much. And for everybody else, we're going to be on Wednesday night, Bible study. Everybody know about it. But State Representative Hollis, thank you so much. And for your kindness and your ability to have forgiveness in your heart for mistakes that people make. Thank you so much for that. And
Former preacher.
yeah, Representative Daniels, thank you so much. And I hope you at least will come back with us sometime. 'Cause when the session is over with and things have been accomplished, share with us again. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Anytime you invite me, and I'm there.
I appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you much.
Thank
And I'm
you.
sure all our guests
Thank you
do.
very much.
So to everybody else, we're going to end the broadcast where we are with everyone right now that's on the screen. And let's remember that we're Gatekeepers Association and members of Guiding Light Church, EWTN, and the gatekeepers. I could just go on and name. I don't need to name all of them involved because Sister Rowe would be telling me I prolong the program. But and she's got to get on the road. So to everybody, thank you so much. Remember, you're created to excel and not fail. And get involved. Get involved. And let's help keep competent people like these two that we got online right now that are there making decisions for all of us. Love you all. We all love you. So everybody say bye-bye to everybody.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
See you now.